Okay, so I am finally getting around to making the first of two videos I am going to make, having gone to Capoeira lessons for some months now. And I have some observations I would like to share. Now the second one is going to be a more in-depth comparison and contrast between Choy Li Fut and Capoeira, because I think it's quite interesting. Like, they do work really well together as styles to train, and also why Capoeira works so well for me specifically, possibly more so than other people who do Choy Li Fut. And also it's quite interesting to me, kind of coming at it from an Eastern martial arts perspective. You know, I've been learning two Eastern martial arts really, because I've been doing Tai Chi as well for years now, over a decade, and sort of interesting to me how the way that Capoeira works, which is a very Western martial art from a completely different tradition, it still to me works within like the principles as I understand them of Choy Li Fut, Eastern martial arts. So I think it'd be I just find it quite interesting anyway. So but today I'm going to do some more generalised stuff, you know, like why I've ended up in Capoeira and not, you know, Kung Fu, why this group seems to work so well for me particularly, that kind of thing. So I think the first really big and important observation to make is that being brilliant in one style of martial art does not automatically translate into being brilliant in another style of martial art. Now, I can't say that I assumed I would be like really brilliant in Capoeira, but it has been harder than I expected. Now, I'm not saying I'm never going to be any good at Capoeira. I think with, you know, time and practice, I will be. But the thing is, right, I started Capoeira in May last year, mid-May last year, and it's now the end of January. So I've had like 7 full months of lessons, you know, barring holidays and stuff. And yeah, the thing is, by this stage, when I'd been in Choy Li Fut lessons this long, it was really obvious I was going to be leaving everyone I started with in the dust. Like, it was just so obvious. And I was going to be catching up with people not far ahead of me fairly quickly. Couple of the advanced students were looking at me a little bit warily, a little bit like, ooh, you know. It was very obvious I was going to be really good. Now, I'm not saying it was obvious to me. It certainly wasn't obvious to me I was going to be what I am now. Possibly Neil knew, I don't know. But anyway, it was just really obvious, okay? That's not the case with Capoeira. I'm not saying I'm no good. I think I'm reasonable at it. But I don't see myself like, you know, certainly none of the advanced students are feeling threatened by me. I mean, they're just not like that anyway. But I don't see any of them being like really, I'm not going to be like overtaking the senior teacher, I don't think. Unlike with Neil, who I do feel I am better than. But anyway, so that's the first thing. And I think it's a really important thing to do, actually, if you are really good at one style of martial art, or you've been learning one style for a long time, to just try another martial art, because it's very easy, I think. I know this is something I do talk about from time to time. You know, you get, if you're really into Kung Fu in particular, probably any martial art really, you do get like a sense of arrogance. You can do. It's like keeping yourself grounded it's kind of a constant thing that you have to do. And this is a great way to do it. Try it. You might remember that you're actually a human being like other people again, if that's a thing that you've forgotten. So another thing that I've noticed, or a conclusion I say that I have come to about this, is that so there's this thing that I've seen a lot where BJJ white belts are supposedly, this is what's said on the internet a lot, they can take all comers, right? Doesn't matter what style you do, doesn't matter how good you are at your other style, any BJJ white belt will take you, okay? So I've always kind of thought that was bullshit. It was even said by Leo Rokas from Martial Arts Journey. It annoyed me so much. I did try to look into going to a BJJ lesson just to see, but there was still some COVID issues, so I ended up not doing that. But anyway, so I've been going to Capoeira, which is a different thing, and I've come to the conclusion that this is kind of a misunderstanding of a thing that happens when you go to a different martial art. So, like, when I go to Capoeira, I'm there to learn Capoeira. I'm leaving my Kung Fu and my Tai Chi at the door, more or less. I mean, there's sometimes it creeps in, I can't quite help it. But for the most part, I am just leaving that at the door, right? I'm there to learn Capoeira. I can't be in the beginner lesson learning Ginga and the crescent kick, you know, the outside crescent, the other crescent, because, you know, I can't be doing that if I'm then also doing my Kung Fu stuff. Like, I'm there to learn Capoeira. I'm not going to learn Capoeira if I start doing my Kung Fu in the beginner lesson when I'm supposed to be learning some Capoeira combination, right? So that's one thing. And so then we have, in Capoeira, you have the thing they call a hodder, which is, they say, is a game, right? It's not really sparring because you're not intentionally hitting each other for the most part, right? I mean, primarily you're not supposed to. You can if you want to. But it's kind of like, that's not really what it's for. You're not there to hit your opponent, the person that you're playing with, okay? It's kind of more of an interactive game where you're trying out your kicks and them, and they get to try dodging the kicks, and then you'd get to dodge, and when they try to kick you, that kind of thing. It's testing out the moves that you have learned, trying to do incorporate different combinations, that kind of thing, right? And now, if I start doing my Kung Fu in that, I'm not going to be practicing the Capoeira I've just learned in the lesson. I'm not going to be learning my Capoeira if I just start doing my mad Kung Fu skills, okay? It's not going to happen. So I don't do that normally, right? And now I'm not saying that could never happen. You know, I feel like, I could probably use my Kung Fu in a hodder if, you know, I'd had this agreement beforehand with the people that I'm playing with. But I'm certainly not going to do it on Capoeira beginners, because that would be outrageous. You know, they're there to learn as well. I can't be doing my advanced skills on them. That'd be rubbish. So I think that when people mostly go to a BJJ lesson, or they go to any lesson, if they've already become proficient in something else, another martial art, they're there to learn. They're leaving whatever their other martial art at the door. They're there to learn whatever they've come to learn and interact in the way that the lesson demands, because if they don't, then it's going to be disruptive for the lesson. It's going to be disruptive. They won't learn properly. It's going to be disruptive for the other people, making it more difficult for them to learn properly. And now I suspect that when this happens with BJJ, people come to BJJ, they're leaving and they've already become very advanced in another style. They're leaving that at the door. They're just there to learn BJJ. They're rubbish at BJJ because they've just started to learn it. And so obviously any white belt is going to beat them at BJJ, all right, in the lesson, because they're there to learn BJJ. And I suspect that in their arrogance, people who do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just kind of assume that means that all other martial arts are rubbish. And I suspect that that's not the case. That I can't say for sure, but that's my observation on the situation where that is concerned. So, how is it that I ended up in Capoeira? Why not a different style of Kung Fu, for example? Okay, so first of all, I have tried others. There was a style called Dragon Fist I tried. Neil sent me there when we'd had a bit of a spat. It was rubbish. Kung Fu, it wasn't a great style for me personally. It was a bit plodding, I found, a bit basic for me. I wasn't that into it. Plus, one of the teachers, way too touchy-feely. So I never went back there after one lesson. And I did try Wing Chun lesson. It was led, the teacher was a woman. And it was all right. Like, she was all right. I was a bit worried about one of the men there, how he would be with me in the future. But I mean, I think it was okay. The thing is that I'd kind of gone there wanting to find someone to practice my advanced Choy Li Fut on. Maybe a sparring partner or something. And I realised that this was not going to work in a beginner Wing Chun lesson. Right? If I'd started doing my Choy Li Fut, that was going to be disruptive for the lesson, and it's going to be disruptive for them. And really, beginner Wing Chun students are not going to be any good for an advanced Choy Li Fut student to spar with. It's just not going to work. So I really wasn't that interested in learning Wing Chun. I mean, at the time, I certainly wasn't interested in adding a new style to what I was already learning. Because I generally feel like I have to really put the work in, and I didn't feel like I could do that with Wing Chun. So I kind of didn't go there. I did try another Tai Chi style because a friend took me along. He went to this teacher he really liked. I didn't go back there because I found the teacher really creepy. So, right. So first of all, the thing you have to understand is that the group isn't necessarily going to work. Like I said, creepy teachers all over the place. So that's for a start, right? No creepy teachers in the Capoeira group. Hooray. And then, but there's always going to be other stuff. So like I said, with the Wing Chun lesson, women was fine, but I was a bit worried about one of the men there. So, you never quite know if a group is going to work for you particularly. And I think another thing is to remember is that other styles won't necessarily work very well with the style that you're already learning. So, I don't feel like Wing Chun was going to really be a great one to add to Choy Li Fut. I guess, like, for me personally, my primary thing is Choy Li Fut, and I kind of want stuff to bolster that, really. And I don't feel like Wing Chun was going to do it. I do not think that Dragon Fist style was going to do it. I do feel like Capoeira does, for various reasons I'll go into in a bit. And so there's another thing is accessibility, right? So I do actually know a couple of trans men who go to Kung Fu. Obviously, if trans men are comfortable in a group, I mean, like, one of them's a black belt and actually is an assistant teacher, I think. Now, presumably, if trans men are comfortable there, I probably would, but it's quite a long way away. So, I mean, they live way outside the city, like deepest Norfolk, and so where they go, it's still closer to me than to them, but it's a bit of a distance from me. It's probably like a 40-minute cycle ride or something. Whereas, at least, it's quite a long way. Whereas, the Capoeira, it's like half an hour at the most, So there's an accessibility issue, right? So I wasn't going to go there primarily because of that. And, I would have liked to go to Bagua, for example. I think that would be a really interesting supplement to my Choy Li Fut training. But that ain't happening near me, that's for sure. And so I think there's a couple of other things about Capoeira. First of all, it does work as a style with Choy Li Fut because it's a lot of leg work. You probably noticed, anyone who's ever looked at Capoeira, you probably know the emphasis is on kicking and on your legs. There's also a lot of acrobatics, but the fact that there's very strong emphasis on stances, but also being able to move and flow. The flow is very important in Capoeira. then there's moving at odd angles, but it does all that, which obviously we also do in Choy Li Fut, but it does it in different ways. So for that reason, it's a very good supplement, a very good complement to what I do in Choy Li Fut, because it's still teaching me different angles. It's still it's giving me more grounding in my stances and stuff like that. So it's really great for that. I think the fact that it does sort of acrobatics as well, like it's great to do cartwheels, and at some point it will be great when I can do a handstand. Honestly, doing a handstand when you're like a full-grown adult is not like doing a handstand when you're 10, I tell you. It's a very different thing. So I think it's been very good for that reason. I think that there's another thing about Capoeira, which is that it has its origins in fighting slavery, right? So it was developed by slaves to help, deal with the fact that they were slaves, fight their masters, and it's also about revolution, right? So they kind of, like, on the website, when I looked at the website, when I first heard about Capoeira being in Norwich, I looked at the website and it said, we are about revolution. On the website, okay? We are here to bring about revolution, right? So obviously, I'm an anarchist, that speaks to me, I'm down with that. And another thing is, like recently there was a thing in the group chat, they'd been asked about going to a Palestine Solidarity March. Obviously, you'll know I support Palestine, and hey, what do you know? They do too. There was this kind of group position, I guess you might say. The people who run the group said, we support Palestine. First of all, we think there should be a ceasefire and end to bloodshed. There's, we support Palestine because Capoeira is supposed to be about, helping the oppressed against their oppressors, that kind of thing. Obviously, that's the case of Palestine. And then, of course, it has its roots in fighting colonialism, which is what slavery was based in. So this is why, that was their explanation for this position. Didn't surprise me at all. And so, yes, obviously, I'm not going to find that in every martial arts group I go to. I'm not sure that the trans men who go to the Kung Fu, I'm not sure they're going to find, like, their teachers there are saying, we support Palestine, or anything like that. I don't know if they're going to find that. They do, by the way, but I don't know if that would be the case, if their teachers do, or, how many people in their group would. But you see, it's interesting. So, like, obviously I could have gone to Krav Maga. I'm not doing that. But I suspect the same would not be happening in a Krav Maga lesson with Krav Maga teachers. So I think that, so you kind of got to understand that there's going to be, there is a political element to it. I know a lot of people like to say, keep politics out of martial arts. That's because they're privileged and they don't have to worry about anything much, and they get annoyed when they are reminded that other people have issues that they're not really interested in concerning themselves with. So, yeah, so there are kind of other reasons that aren't necessarily specifically about the martial art. And I think there's another thing which is, it's a friendly group, all right? It's actually a very welcoming group. I'd say it's a more welcoming group than others. They are definitely more welcoming it's far more diverse, I've got to say, right? I mean, one of the people who runs the group is biracial. One of them is, I would describe as Latino. Now, I know this is kind of a bullshit ethnicity made up by racist people in the USA who just want to differentiate South American white people from them and be racist about South Americans. But, I mean, I don't know if he's actually Latino. He might be, like, more directly Italian or Portuguese or something. I'm not sure. But, but the thing is, right, the reason I mention this is that Neil's classes, every other group I've been to, or almost every other group I've been to, right, They're so white. Neil's classes were so white. There wasn't even anyone you might describe as Latino or Mediterranean there. That's how white Neil's lessons were. And, you know, we've had trans women come a few times. There's a couple of non-binary people who come every now and again. I don't feel like that would work, that you would find that diversity in other lessons. You know, you've got one of the teachers wearing a Protect Trans Kids t-shirt. I don't think he's actually a teacher. I think he's just like involved in with running the group. But yeah, so I think that's an important thing to understand. So greater diversity works for me personally as a gender non-conforming woman, because the fact that I wasn't like properly womanly or whatever was definitely an issue. Has definitely been an issue in wider martial arts. It was definitely an issue in lessons with Neil. But they don't mind that so much there, that I'm not like really feminine or anything, so that's fine. Another thing I like is there's hardly any middle-aged white men. Oh my god, I can't tell you how annoying it has been to go to kung fu lessons and find like half of them middle-aged white men. Like, what's that about? Having some kind of midlife crisis, I guess. Ugh, it's so annoying. And obviously they've got all their middle-aged white men views on women. It's never very helpful. So yeah, I quite like that. I'm probably the oldest person there, I will be honest. But anyway, so another thing I think is quite interesting is it's very non-hierarchical. Okay, so the senior teacher there, right? Now I saw him there regularly, and but it was like I said, I started in mid-May, but I didn't realise until mid-September who the senior teacher was. Like, and it's really funny because, and I think that's a good thing, okay, because when I went to lessons with Neil, even if like Neil had not said on the website that he was like the owner and the founder or whatever, right, even if he'd not said that on there, like, you could not escape knowing that Neil was the big important guy there. Like, you just couldn't avoid knowing that, all right? And that's because he made it was very important to him to be seen as that, all right? And it was actually important to everybody else to see him as well, right? Now, I'm not saying there's no kind of respect for the senior teacher there as being like the most advanced or whatever, because there is. It's just that it's not a big deal in the way that it is quite often in other lessons and other classes. So, and very clearly, it like running the group is a group effort. So there are 5 people who kind of run the group, 4 of them teachers. The teachers swap around a bit, you know, doing like, so I mean the senior teacher only really teaches advanced, he doesn't teach beginners. The others do teach, they swap around teaching beginners and taking the warm-up. So yeah, I find it, but what that means is that yeah, so I just didn't realise that that there's no kind of sense that the senior teacher is the one who tells everybody else what to do. There's no kind of sense that he's like enforcing any kind of authority there at all. Which obviously to me as an anarchist is great. That's what I like. It's what I like to see. And also it means there's no kind of cult teacher thing going on. I really like that personally. So another great thing about it is that there are different warm-ups every week. So because, like I said, the teachers swap around taking the warm-up sessions, there's different warm-ups every week. They have a half-hour warm-up normally. I like that personally. I do a half-hour warm-up on my own. It's brilliant. And it means that there's all sorts of different warm-ups, which obviously is great. Like I have my own set warm-up, which I do for my Kung Fu and Tai Chi, but you know, it's always good to have lots of different warm-ups going on because there's loads of different stretching, you know, different things being, you know, different press-ups, different, there's hardly ever any, but it's still it's quite interesting. They're actually doing stuff now where I might actually learn the single leg squat at some point, might be able to do that at some point because they do kind of warm-ups that involve that. Whereas that's not something that's been incorporated for me. So that's a brilliant one. So it's all kind of basic. They often includes yoga, by the way, which I really like too. So it's broad. It is basically making my body, it's broadening my body's capabilities, which is always a good thing. Yeah, and I think that might actually be it. Really, I mean, it's great to go. I mean, essentially, it is great to just go to this. Like, clearly, I love it, right? I barely missed a lesson. I've missed like one lesson and holidays. That's it. Okay, it's just so great to just be around other people who are into martial art, even if it's not my specific martial art. And it's always good to have that interaction. Even though, like in the Hodders, I'm not actually practicing my kung fu, it's still good to test yourself against other people. I still get to test myself against other people. And like that's all gonna help whatever thing you're doing, whatever else you do. So I think it's just been like, it's great. I'm so looking forward to continuing with the group for I don't know how long, however long I'm here, I guess, which hopefully will be a while. I don't know, but yeah. So I'll kind of go into it a little bit more next time. I think one thing I just want to finish with is so they have a nickname thing that they do. So because capoeira, like I said, it has origins in fighting slavery. They gave each other nicknames to kind of hide their identities basically. And so they have a tradition of giving group members nicknames. You don't necessarily get it immediately or anything like that, but you have to prove yourself a little bit. And I think my commitment to being at lessons has meant that they've given me one, and it's Panda, and you're all jealous, okay? You're all jealous. You people who do kung fu, you're all jealous that you didn't get that nickname, okay? Huh? You are. You all wish people would give you that nickname. So yeah, it's been great, and I look forward to telling you a little bit more about comparing the two styles.